Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound Podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
Hey, I'm really excited about today's guest, Caroline Doctorow. She's a singer-songwriter and has been called the great champion of American folk music. Her most recent album, Dreaming in Vinyl, reached number 2 on the National Folk Radio Airplay charts. She received the Alexander Award from the Long Island Arts Council in 2018 and an official New York State proclamation honoring her many years of work as a folk singer. In addition to 11 solo albums, she released the first retrospective of work of the 1960s folk icons Richard and Mimi Farina, titled Another Country, which received critical acclaim. She opened for the band, Alison Krauss, Tim O'Brien, among others. Her songs and her voice have been heard on soundtracks on the large and small screen. She's also the daughter of E.L. Dockdrow. We really get into a great bit of her career, some great tips for singer-songwriters. Stay tuned. Check it out. Everyone, I am so excited to have Caroline Doctorow on the show. She's a well-renowned folk singer, songwriter, played with so many famous people. She has a pretty famous dad as well, and we're going to get in some great stories and about her influences and developing the muse. Hey, Caroline, welcome to the Long Island Sound Podcast. It's really so good to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
In looking at your bio and your background, it looks like you've done a few retrospective albums. Can you tell me why you did it and what was the big influence to approach a retrospective?
That's such a good question. Well, when I was in high school, Richard and Mimi Farina, who are folk icons, put out 2 albums, and my friends and I just learned everything on those albums. And the interesting connection was that Mimi Farina was Joan Baez's sister. So it was sort of this offshoot. And Richard Farina was such a remarkable songwriter. He wrote many protest songs, which is a really hard thing to do because you can get really preachy writing a protest song. But the good ones seem to walk a fine line between getting the message across, but the songs are something you want to listen to, and they also don't lose their power over time. They stand the test of time. Well, anyway, all these years go by, and I had heard, I think it was in 2005, that Mimi Farina passed away, and by then I hadn't really been thinking so much about their music because I had moved on to other influences and inspirations. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, what an important person in my artistic life. And I did get to meet her. I think it was 2 times, one at a concert and one at a the School of Nonviolence event that Joan Baez was hosting. But anyway, she was a very magical person. So I knew that I loved all the songs that Richard Farina had written for their albums. One is called Another Country. So I happened to shopping around for someone who knew this material to be the producer of the album. And my friend Barnes Newberry, who's a DJ up in the Rhode Island area, said, hey, you should contact Pete Kennedy of the Kennedys. And so I did, and he was really interested in the project. Pete and Maura, his wife Maura, came to stay in this little cottage that we have on our property, and we made the record in just a number of weeks. The amazing thing is that Pete Kennedy is such a multi-instrumentalist, so he could play dulcimer, which was on the original recordings. He could play the sitar, which was on the original recordings, and he, was able to add harmony so that it sounded, like a duet, like Richard and Mimi Farina.
Nice.
And Maura added harmony. But those songs are really complex, and they're very literary in the approach to the songwriting that Richard Frinya did. Another one of the songs he wrote is called Raven Girl, which is one of my favorites. But anyway, that album came out, and Pete was able to get the late Nancy Griffith on 3-track sing harmony, which was a highlight to say the least, because she's one of my favorite, like, top 3 songwriters. But she also grew up on those albums that I had grown up on. And we also got that Lovin' Spoonful guy, what is his name again?
John Sebastian.
John Sebastian, and a couple other really top-notch people.
Now, did you get John Sebastian in the studio with you? And how was that, if that was the case?
He's great, but I found him, for some reason, he was so intimidating, just as a person, and, you know, a almost mythical figure.
Right.
I just cowered a little bit in the corner, and I let Pete, instruct him and tell him what to do.
You know what I find, Caroline, interesting, and you bring up a really good point about, quote, protest songs, is how they're evergreen, I mean,
Right.
you can listen to something from the mid-late 60s and then say, oh my God, this is today. This is today. And that's maybe a bit of history or the human condition repeating itself. But what I love about what you do and what songwriters do is, as humans, we have to be reminded of things. And those songs bring out, for me, bring out a sense of empathy to understand positions and what's going on through somebody else's song. And that's what I find so beautiful. The other thing I want to mention, or what I'm hearing from you, is the fact that you brought this project to the producer and you approached it as a project.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear that often. A lot of time I hear, hey, I'm bringing me and this is what I'm going to do. But when you bring a project and it is a seed of interest to somebody that they buy in and say, hey, that's a great idea. I want to back you up on that. And then they bring other people in, which makes it even more magical in my opinion.
Yeah, it was really, probably the best artistic experience that I've ever had. Certainly the best recording experience that I've ever had. Someone asked me about what was very challenging when I was younger as a musician, and I remembered that finding a good producer was incredibly challenging, not to get all women's lib on it or anything, but back when I was younger, nobody really wanted to hear my opinion about the sound I was looking for or value it until later, when the first producer that I worked with that I really loved is named Frank Carrillo. He's a singer-songwriter also, and then Pete Kennedy. Both those guys really, they knew how to be a group working on something rather than someone just telling me what to do.
It's interesting that you say that because, one, I think women in music still struggle. I think it's gotten a lot better over the past number of years as far as gaining recognition and driving their music. Mm-hmm. And what came to mind while you were saying that is I took this homiletics class, right? And I was so fortunate that I had a husband and wife teaching it. The wife was trained in public speaking, and she gave me such a great perspective from a female audience member that I would never have had before. Mm-hmm. To say, hey, you know what, Steve, the words you said, I can't relate to that. Mm. And it blew me away. And it's like, all right, I have to put on a different kind of mindset as, I have to think about the audience and who I'm talking to and the words I use. And I don't know, maybe it's the same with songwriting. I don't know, but it's interesting to hear that you got the opportunity to speak your mind and use your influence.
Yeah, we did a second album of a woman's songs. Her name is Mary McCaslin.
Okay.
So that was the songs of Mary McCaslin. The title is I Carry All I Own, the songs of Mary McCaslin. And the Frinya is called Another Country, the songs of Richard and Mimi Frinya. But she is an interesting writer in that her songs were really Western themed. in a very classy way. She also wrote about the environment like way before anyone else did. And what happened to her was that she lived, I think, in the Midwest as a child, and suddenly her family was moving to, quote, sunny California, and she envisioned, ponies and mountains, and they ended up living in a very sort of built-up area. And that affected her art for the rest of her life. But she's another one that I really admire. Paying tribute to people that have had such a huge influence on the direction that you take in your life. And both those groups did.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, honoring the foundation of your influences brings them back to life again. Like you said, it's evergreen. And that brings me to a point. I think the first time I heard your voice was on a Hank Williams tribute album that Bill Herman put together on Paradiddle Records.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to have you tell me about that experience. So there's a country western guy who's a prolific songwriter, simple songs with very true and transparent. Tell me about the song that you did on I think it was Hank Williams Uncovered or something like that.
Hank Williams Uncovered by the great Paradiddle Records. Those guys are terrific. They give us all a chance to sort of stretch out a material that we might not normally get to record, and how valuable is that to have a locally based record label on Long Island. So my hat goes off to those guys. But anyway, I chose the song Cold, Cold Heart, and I produced it using my fiddle player studio. Gary Olyar is his name, and the studio is called Sonoma Beach. And he's another one of these people that plays all the instruments under the sun. Mm-hmm. The challenge with Cold, Cold Heart was that I felt as a singer and interpreter of that song that if I did it in that sort of straight ahead shuffle, like everybody does, sort of upbeat and all that I would have literally nothing new to offer.
Right.
And I have come across this video of this little band playing this live show at a bar in Nashville. And the groove, as they say, that the drummer was doing was fascinating because it kind of sounded like you're at the end of 4 hours of playing music and everybody's had something to drink and you've come into this really natural sort of groove, and it was quite a different tempo than the normal Hank Williams shuffle might be. And it took us literally weeks to get there because Gary was playing the drums, and finally we just hired some other drummer. He got it. Allowed me as a singer to sing the song. As Steve Matteo pointed out to me, I hadn't even realized that instead of the song being about one person being left and saying, I don't know what to do about your cold, cold heart, and it's this, it's hard, and it's this and that, it became a song where almost there was hope, and the one person was caring about the other and just saying, I don't know why you're like this, but you got the feeling that they would stick together.
I tell you, it brings such an interesting perspective to me, and I may come from left field with this thought. In the music scene today, particularly in Long Island and New York, the tribute band is a big deal. It's people. My opinion, they're people reminiscing about, hey, the Allman Brothers, and sometimes it's note for note. And to me, I might as well just play the album and have somebody play that. But now to put your own signature style on it, or a new style, finding a groove that's so different that kind of goes, hey, yeah, I'm going to take this perspective on a song that makes it so new to people.
Mm-hmm.
Same lyrics, same chord structure, different beat groove, different song to it to a certain extent. And that's what I love about music, discovering, I keep on using this term, the wellspring of talent here on Long Island, is to get that perspective of, wow, that was really cool. And made me look at, it's like looking at a painting and seeing something different when you go and see something in a museum. And I think that's great with what you do.
Thank you.
Cool. Hey, let's do this, Caroline. Let's just take a quick break.
Okay.
And we got a lot to hash out here, everybody. Hang with us. We'll be right back with Caroline Doctorow.
Are you ready for the ultimate podcasting adventure? The Long Island Sound podcast offers you not one, but 2 ways to engage with our captivating content. Tune in to our audio podcast on your favorite platform and let your imagination paint vivid pictures of Long Island stories. Or if you're craving a visual feast, catch our video podcast on Spotify and on the Long Island Sound YouTube channel. Double the options, double the excitement.
Hey, everybody. We're back with Caroline Doctorow. Caroline, I find your voice and your singing voice so very unique, and that was really clear to me in the Hank Williams tune. And then you did a tune about Alison Steele, who is a DJ here in New York, who used to do a nighttime. She was called The Nightbird, and that's the title of your song. And a flood of memories came back to me through that song, through your voice, and then remembering Alison Steele. She had like a sultry voice that kind of just kind of pulled you into the conversation. And to me, it made, I think, thousands of people say, hey, she's just talking to me tonight. So tell me about that song and Alison Steele.
I'm happy to. You and I have that in common, and that I listened to her too. Up in the 3rd floor of our house in New Rochelle, my dad had his hi-fi, as they called them then. And
yeah, so for the kids that are listening to the show, a hi-fi was kind of like, there were different hi-fis. A lot of them had TVs in them, radios, and record players, right? And it was like a big cabinet. All right, just point of reference.
Okay, so I guess my dad sort of introduced me to her show, Alison Steele's show, she called herself The Nightbird, and it was on WNEW, and it started at, late in the evening. And she was her show was the first place that I heard many of the people that I still listen to today. She played Jimi Hendrix and Leonard Cohen and Donovan and Melanie and, a lot of folk rock. And she did, like you say, she had a really beautiful, sultry speaking voice, and she would sort of draw you in. And her theory, as I later learned recently, was that she just wanted to be company for people that were maybe working graveyard shift jobs or who were maybe alone. She always wanted to be positive and upbeat, and she would read poetry, and her theme song was this mystical sort of flute piece of music. And again, she was someone that, for some reason, I just started to think about her now. And she passed away, I think, in the early 90s. She was only in her 50s, which was terrible. But the heyday of her show was mid-60s to mid-70s. I thought I would really like to write a song about her. And I learned something so valuable when I took a songwriting class from a guy named Hugh Prestwood. He's in the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, and he lived in Greedport with his wife Judy for many years. The thing that he taught me is within the first 2 lines, you really should try and let the listener know what the song is about. If you think of songs that you really love, if you think of the song Yesterday, Lennon McCartney, Yesterday, all my troubles were so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay. I believe in yesterday. I mean, you kind of know immediately that that's a love song and it's a breakup song. When you hear the song, it says, the summer of love back in 71, late at night, we'd turn the radio on. Like, that's what I learned from Hugh Presswood. You know, don't make everybody work so hard to know where we're going together in this song.
Yeah, yep.
And again, one of my favorite writers, songwriters, Nancy Griffith, and her song, I don't know if you know it, Trouble in the Fields.
Mm-hmm.
Baby, I know we have trouble in the fields when the bankers swarm like locusts out there, turning away our yields. Like,
wow.
Do you even need any more of a song?
You know, it's almost like journalism 101, where I'm giving you the headline.
Yeah.
So to get the intrigue, for you to go, okay, yeah, this is what this is about. What a great tip.
You know, obviously some pieces of music that become very popular do that in some musical way, you know, with a hook or, you know, like a Rolling Stones song, but that's just not my world, so I don't really know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do it with the lyrics if I am going to have anybody listen to anything that I do.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point. That headline, what I call a headline, can be the lyric, and in some cases, the headline could be a drum groove in the beginning. Okay, I know it. I'm ready for something upbeat or whatever. It's really cool. Hey, let's do this. Let's listen to Nightbird, and then I want to pick some interesting stuff that you did with the song. So audience, kind of cue in to Nightbird, and we'll be right back after the song. Check it out.
So come, fly with me.
Turn on, tune in. The nightbird is on the wing. Play me the songs of the summer I love again. A summer of love back in 71. Late at night we turn the radio on to hear what the nightbird had to say. Her sultry voice floated on the airwaves. She cast a spell through that radio dial, our stepping stone to a brand new style. Hendrix, Joplin, Buffy St. Marie. She played all the records we wanted to hear. Turn on, tune in. The nightbird is on the wing. Play me the songs of the summer I love again. Up in the attic with the hi-fi on, listening to the Purple Haze psychedelic sound. Love is spoonful, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Papa John Creech, Mama Cass. We fly high on the radio waves until dawn. She was the vinyl queen of that FM dial, so leave your radio on. The Nightbird was a mystical flyer, a disc jockey, trailblazing airwaves rider. That sultry voice is now among the stars, but you can still hear it if you listen hard. High in the clouds through the looking glass, she's California dreaming on her phonograph. Turn on, tune in. The nightbird is on the wing. Play me the songs of the summer I love again. Turn on, tune in. The nightbird is on the wing. Play me the songs of the summer I love again.
Allison Steele, The Night Bird.
What a great song. As I said, for me, it brought back a flood of memories of listening, me as a young kid listening to Allison Steele at night. But tell me, how did you get her into the song? It was kind of cool.
That was actually Gary Oliar's idea. I was using his studio, and I wondered, well, how do you get the rights for that? And apparently, if it's a certain amount of seconds long, you're allowed to do that. That just added another level to the whole nostalgia of the experience.
Absolutely. Hey, you know what's interesting? Just touching back on our earlier conversation. You talked about the DJ in the Rhode Island, Boston area who was influential to connect you with people to do the retrospective album. And even today, I know a lot of singer-songwriters, up-and-comings that, they work to get the exposure of their music and the influence of a DJ. It's so sad that it goes away with streaming. It's alive still with SiriusXM and what have you.
Wonderful network that's been so good to me of small radio stations across the country. There's so many of them. A lot are in colleges and little towns. And I don't remember if you know that I host a radio show called Song Trails.
As Ed McMahon used to say, I did not know that. So tell me.
WPKN based in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and it's an hour of folk and roots music and songs that I really love, songwriters that I really love. And it airs the first Saturday of every month at 7 o'clock on WPKN.
Oh, cool.
3 on your FM dial. But that gives me a nice opportunity it's been really good for my songwriting, I have to say, because I've been hosting that show for, I don't know, maybe 12 years. And the first few years are very easy because you have this whole library of stuff that you love and that you want other people to hear. And then you go through that library and then the real work begins and you have to search around for other things that you really love and I've discovered so many great songwriters that way.
Nice. So now I can add you to my DJ list along with Gene Casey and Mary Lamont.
That's right.
So I'm starting to stack them up. I'm starting to collect them now. So that's
Well,
that's pretty cool.
If you make a record and you want people to hear it, you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, exactly. I got to ask you this because it took me a little while when I do promotional spots and I'm in a room all by myself, speaking into the camera like I'm doing now. I have you on the other side, which is great. It's really kind of weird. I've had my wife Debbie go, "Who are you talking to up there?" I'm like, "I'm by myself." She's like, "Oh, okay, great." How was that for you when you first started being a DJ, just talking to the ether, so to speak?
Well, I will say that it's a hobby of mine. I'm not a professional like some other people I know, like Barnes Newberry that I mentioned, Allison Steele that we loved so much. And also, when you are a recording artist, you do actually get used to the sound of your speaking voice because you'll be talking and then they'll start recording and all that. So I wasn't freaked out by the sound of my speaking voice, although maybe I should be. But
oh, come on.
It has I'm not a natural at it. So like I said, it's really a hobby, and maybe I don't really think too much about, I should probably think more about how I sound. I don't have like a big booming voice or anything, obviously, but I could see how that could take a little getting used to if you've never done it before.
If you were speaking to me as an up-and-coming singer-songwriter who's saying, hey, you know what, how can I get my music out to more ears with DJs and stuff like that? Do you have any tips that you think would work today to help get better exposure out on these radio stations, whether it's college radio stations or anything else?
There is an organization called Folk Alliance, and if you go on the Folk Alliance website, I think there's a button that says radio or folk radio.
Okay.
Click on that, there's a whole list of folk stations across the country, that a person could attempt to get their music to.
Okay.
I think you kind of have to do it in bulk to get anywhere. Obviously, if you know someone locally, but that would only be one station. But if you want to get more of a national exposure, I would go to the Folk Alliance website. And I used to be a radio promoter for people that recorded at my studio,
Okay.
which Pete Kennedy and I produced albums for a lot of local artists. I think we did it for like 8 years.
Okay.
So I don't do radio promotion for people anymore, but I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. You know what I find so interesting is now a lot of artists are doing their, I guess, laying down their tracks on phones and everything else. There's so much technology that's available to them. But I think also there's that, because I asked this a lot. I asked them, are you sole practitioner? You like, some people are, hey, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
And others are like collaborative in the writing process sometimes, or and I learned this, by the way. I'm no big brain by any means. Is my good friend Mike Nugent, great singer-songwriter, phenomenal guitarist, and I learned besides what he does in teaching, giving lessons, he lays down tracks for a lot of folk artists like Linda Sussman and Josie Bello. And then he takes those tracks and he hands it over to a guy named Kevin Kelly. And Kevin is professor of mixology, sound design, and he puts his influence on it. But I think the other thing I found so interesting in just talking to Mike and talking to you and other people about this is, hey, well, you know what? I know a guy who's he's a dobro player. Let's bring him in. Or this drummer may not be giving us a sound. I think I got somebody else who might be a good influence on that. And that's where I think it really can give more body to an album and song with those influences. Has that been your experience as well, or am I like totally out of whack on that?
I think what you were saying is that that's a way that many hands and several different studios can put a project together. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. So I've seen a couple areas where an artist will do the whole thing, everything soup to nuts from beginning to end, and boom, there's the song.
Yeah.
Lay down the tracks, mix it, so on and so forth. And then, I didn't know this world. And then I'm seeing what Mike's doing, and he's laying down the tracks, and he's, okay, then I'm going to send it to Kevin to mix it. I'm like, what do you mean mix? Didn't you just do that? He goes,
Yeah.
No. He's going to get his ears on it and tweak it to a point where it's going to be beautiful. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I've never really done that. I like to be a lot more hands-on, and I would worry too much if I let it go in this other direction and I wasn't able to babysit it.
Oh, cool. Interesting. Wonderful.
But I know that works for other people.
Cool. All right, let's switch things around a bit. Let's talk about, well, first of all, there's an elephant in the room, and that's your dad. So tell me a little bit about him for those who don't know. And then I'd like to get into, I remember you telling this story once, one of your early influences. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yes. Okay, well, I'll start with my father. He was a world-renowned writer. His name is E.L. Doctorow. And I was very blessed with a wonderful childhood living in New Rochelle. And because of my father's career, so many amazing people came through the house, including Pete Seeger.
Oh, wow.
And James Baldwin, the writer, and, all kinds of poets and painters. And it was just a really rich upbringing. Mm. And one of the people that my father worked with when he was still in publishing, before he was able to devote his full time to writing, was Joan Baez. And she was sort of in the heyday of her career, although her career never, she remains a world icon, an amazing person. But anyway, my father and his partner in publishing approached Joan to write an autobiography, which she did, and it's called Daybreak. She wrote several books after that with other publishers and everything. But Daybreak was sort of a combination of dreams and poems, and she has sort of a remembrance of Richard Farina in there, who we were talking about. And so while they were working on this book, several times she came to the house to visit and taught me some chords on the guitar. And you can imagine me as like a little 8-year-old kid, and I already had a guitar because my parents played folk music as a hobby, which is a whole nother story. But to meet someone that charismatic and powerful and gifted had an effect on my whole life, really.
I got to ask you this: you're an 8-year-old kid? Did you know who she really was, or was this like after the?
Yes, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I did to some degree, because my father took me to Carnegie Hall to see her.
Ah, okay.
And prior to his working with her, we had all her albums, and we did nothing but endlessly play them.
Oh my God!
I was quite enamored, and that was really a great time.
Wow, what a fruitful field, and I'm imagining your childhood of, your dad's a creative, and Pete, just Pete Seeger, it's just kind of blowing me away, and Pete Seeger had such a storied life of being blacklisted, and the early guy talking about the Hudson River and taking care of the earth, and it's so true and lives today.
Yeah, I always say this, and I've talked to other people about this, but through his work with social justice and with the Hudson River and music, he managed, without religion, to become saint-like in the eyes of so many people. He was extraordinarily humble, and he wasn't in it for the money, and he would say something like, devoting yourself to help others is a wonderful way to live. He was just an extraordinary person. And just the fact that he had this idea after he and his wife Toshi built this log cabin on a hill above the Hudson River, if I could just get people interested in a sailboat, then maybe they would become interested in helping to clean up the river. And it worked. By the time he passed away, which is, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 7 years ago now, the Hudson River was so much cleaner than when he began. And I hope
there's GE was dumping toxins in it. That river has a story of its own. But you touched my heart in your conversation about Pete, in that of the videos and television shows I've watched with Pete Seeger, my impression was, man, there's a transparent guy that's just being himself. There was no falsity about him. Pete was Pete, and there's an attraction to that. And I'm attracted to artists that have true humility.
Right.
And when you experience their art, whatever it is, okay, and I'm thinking of a particular artist right now. I'm not going to talk about myself. Let me show you. Let me play this for you.
Okay.
And that's as boisterous as they get about what they do, and there's real beauty in that. And I do want to touch on social justice, because my daughter teaches in a school in Manhattan, 10th grade girls, and one of her subjects is social justice.
Wow.
And her name's Faith. And it really, I'm a proud dad. The hair on my arm is raising right now because she's really in her wheelhouse, and she lives what she teaches. And she's very transparent. And it's through a series, in hindsight, it's a series of events that happened in her life that actually stem back to her trip to Guatemala. I don't know, she was a sophomore. Or no, I think she was in middle school, like 14, 15 years old. And she got to experience, quote, the third world. And I'll just tell you this quick story. And her impression was she expected to go to a country and see people who are really sad because they didn't have many things. And she saw quite the opposite. She saw people who didn't have many things, but they had great joy and happiness and the colorful clothing. And it took her back, and she got to experience true poverty and true happiness at the same time. And she would tell you that was a real turning point in her life. And then she proceeded from there. And now she's bringing those lessons to some people now, because she teaches me every day what she does, which is great. So I just plugged you there, Faith. So you owe Daddy $5. Hey, let's do this, Caroline. Let's just take another quick break, and we'll be right back. There's so much more to talk about. Hang with us, everybody. We'll be right back with Caroline Doctorow.
The Long Island Sound is here to help you connect with local artists. Follow us on Instagram for the latest up-to-date podcast episodes, and also to connect with your local artists and their upcoming shows.
We're back with Caroline Doctorow. Caroline, I want to talk about the second song that you brought to the table for us, Every Day Can't Be Saturday Night. Tell me about that song.
Okay. That song was born in Oklahoma, where we were playing the Woody Guthrie Folk Festival, which is held in Okemah, which is where he was born. And we played the festival, and my fiddle player and I were leaving town, and it was a weekday, I guess, Monday probably. And in the middle of the day, and we drove by like a convenience store, and there were these kids hanging out, drinking beer, in the middle of the day, and everything being rowdy. And Chris just said under his breath, well, every day can't be Saturday night. And I thought, I really like that. And I said, can I have that? And he said, yes, you can have it. And so this is sort of a funny songwriting story, but I figured, okay, well, I'm just going to write a story about that, where people are, partying too much, and what happens if you do that. And then I realized it wasn't working, and I also realized I don't really know anything about that, because I'm not really that kind of person.
Sure.
So I had nowhere to hang my hat to write the song. And then the pandemic hit, and I realized that it was the reverse. Every day can't be Saturday night, meaning the good times are gone.
Oh.
And now you have to wait again for the Saturday night fun. So I kind of wrote it for my musician friends, and, it's just a song about waiting for the good times to come back and waiting through the bad times. And I think I finally got it right with the songwriting as best to my ability, because people seem to like it. So
nice.
Yeah.
I got to ask you this. I want to get into the weeds a little bit, because I find it interesting. So your friend, your fiddle player, makes a statement. You go, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. Did it rumble in your head for a while? Did you start writing immediately? Like, how did it progress for you?
I can't exactly remember, but I think I probably tried pretty immediately, because it seemed like such a good idea and such a good title. But like I said, I was just spinning my wheels, and I didn't really get anywhere. The other thing I wanted to say about that is something I learned from listening to John Prine, the great John Prine, talk about songwriting. And he said, I always try to put a physical object in the verse, so that people have something to latch on to. You know, and I think I mentioned his song called Summer's End.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first lines is about bathing suits hanging on a line.
Right.
So that's why I put the thing about the car radio playing Robert Johnson, because then you're like, okay, well, we're in the car. We're riding down a rainy highway, you know, and it's Monday. So that helped me, you know, those two things that I learned from two really skilled, you know, world-renowned songwriters is to let the listener know what the song is about in the first two lines and maybe put something in there that's a physical object rather than an emotion. But if you also have a physical object, then it somehow grounds the listener, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I would imagine as a listener, it pulls me into the scene, just like you said. Yeah, you're in the car, you're in the radio. Okay,
right.
You've given me an opportunity to get drawn in. And the other thing, and the reason why I asked the original question was, I think it was Neil Young also said, it hits you, everything stops, and you start to handle it. And it seems with this particular song, which we'll hear in a moment, is that you had to go through that process of, yeah, that's not me, with my first instinct on Saturday night to get to where you got to in the song.
Yeah, and I'll just say really quickly that I wrote this Christmas song called Looks Like Christmas.
Okay.
The only way that I could have ever said anything new about the holidays, and that took me a year also to figure out, was that a member of our family, extended family, had passed away, and one of the young people was traveling the following Christmas up to that household, and it gave me a way to present a song about some of the more complex emotions we have during the holidays. So that was, again, a really long time in figuring out what they call the point of view, which is the only way that I can write a song is if I know what the point of view is. Otherwise, I don't know what to do. Cool. I have no framework.
Thank you for that, Caroline. All right, let's listen to Every Day Can't Be Saturday Night. We'll be right back after the song. Stick with us, everyone.
Driving down You can't have those sweet dreams without the strife. Stop looking over your shoulder at yesterday's sky, because every day, baby, every day can't be Saturday night. Wednesday to Friday goes so slow. Looking with you was a long time ago. I'm missing you, but it's not in my control. So just let it go. You got a Gibson guitar in the backseat of the car. You're passing by every boarded up lonely bar. And when these storms of life end, just around the bend, those Saturday nights are gonna come back around again. You can't have those sweet dreams without the strife. Stop looking over your shoulder at yesterday's sky, because every day, baby, every day can't be Saturday night. No, every day can't be Saturday night.
Caroline, tell me, what have you been up to lately?
Funny you should ask. Last week I listened to 120 songs because I'm one of 3 judges in a songwriting contest for the Maryland Folklife Center.
Wow.
And it's also called Common Ground on the Hill, which is a festival that I have played. And so I've never done anything like this before, and I found it really encouraging and fun. You know, there were a handful of really, really good songs, and some songs about social justice, and then there were some songs about sort of the local fishing industry that they have going there. So that was really, I wouldn't mind doing that again sometime, I must say.
So I assume you were listening to recordings. They weren't. You didn't have 120 people playing live in front of you.
That might be painful.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, recordings and lyric sheets. I'm glad they gave me the lyric sheets too.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was fun.
And your other 2 judges, do you collaborate, or you just kind of give your score of?
No, yeah, I just did my own score sheet, and those 2 guys did their own, and now they're all being tallied up, and the winners will be announced.
Wonderful. Ooh.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put in the description below some links to that, so people can, when they're listening to this episode, can see, I wonder who.
Yeah, and that's a good idea, because during the summer they have all these classes in folk music and folk traditions, and I can't remember the exact name of the university, but it's in Maryland, and if you just search Maryland Folklife Center,
okay,
it'll come up. Yeah, so maybe somebody will want to go to some of those classes this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to ask you another tip suggestion. So you've played many festivals across the country and up and down the coast, I would assume. Do you have a couple questions? Do you have a favorite festival? And when artists are looking to get into a festival, are there things they should look out for or look for when playing a festival? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I hope
All right,
I
cool.
can answer it. I guess my two favorite festivals have been the Woody Guthrie Folk Festival, which I mentioned, only because his place in history and his own songs, This Land Is Your Land. I mean, you don't get much better than that. And it's always fun to drive out there. I really like long drives. I know a lot of people don't really like them, but I do like them. So that's a fun thing to do. And then, sadly, the other one that I liked best has folded. It's called the New Bedford Folk Festival, which is in New Bedford, Massachusetts. In terms of getting into festivals, I almost feel like it's who you know in a way. It's so incredibly competitive that, to me, the best way to do it is just, instead of staying local as a musician, to make sure that you get out, into the country and play in other places as well. And I think that's how I got the New Bedford Folk Festival, because I did a gig in Rhode Island, and the lady that ran the festival was there. So that is something that I think about and would say to younger people is, make sure you just don't stick around the same old 20-mile.
Yeah, right. Get out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, get out of the neighborhood. And
well, the one thing I've learned from our conversation today is, folk music is alive and well. And I learned that on Long Island, too, because I really hadn't been exposed to that much local folk music. And as I get out and go to different open mics and stuff like that, it is alive and well. And it's the type of genre that is true to what's happening locally from the folks, just, folk music, and I think it's something that you can relate to, whether you're from Tulsa or Boston or New York. People are people, and we're going through different things, and it's the music of the folks
exactly, the music of the people.
Yeah, is very endearing, and another thing that stood out to me in our conversation is that evergreen about protest songs and getting out there. I'm really happy that you're getting back into the studio. I really look forward to it.
I'm excited.
Whatever you promise me something that I'm going to put you on the spot here is when you produce music, would you come back on the show so we can talk about it and explore it with the audience?
I would love to. Thank you.
Oh, Caroline, it was really my pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much, for your time, and I know our audience is really going to enjoy it, and I'll give you the feedback. So
okay, and thanks for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, be well, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment, and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace.